Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's University of Exeter Agent webinar. I'm Rebecca Hill, and I'm Head of International Student Recruitment from the Business School. I'm very excited today as my favourite programme within the suite of Business School programmes is going to be discussed. You're going to be joined today by Jackie Bagnall, who is Director of MBA, and Emma Birch, who is the lead recruiter for the MBA. This is very much your opportunity to ask us any questions you have about the MBA and to find out more about our unique offering. Jackie, over to you, please.
Thank you, Becca. Good morning, all. Good morning, all parts of the world. We are really excited to be able to meet you this morning and tell you a little bit about the Exeter MBA and give you a taster of the sorts of questions that we ask as we engage with our MBA management, leadership development, education. So firstly, I'd just like to share my screen. Okay, so yes, I'm Jackie Bagnall. I am the Programme Director for the MBA at Exeter. And one of the things I wanted to share with you is this idea of putting business into context. And in that, understand the global challenges which set the scene or the landscape of which business has to be mindful. So the aim of this short session is to give you an overview of the global risk landscape, to explore what this means in terms of business strategy and resiliency. The implications then for governance and leadership, what is required of leaders within this business context. To argue and, I guess, assert with you why we think the power of critical thinking is fundamental to doing well and doing better in the context that I describe. And I'll conclude with just a brief overview of what all this means for how we design the Exeter MBA. Okay, so understanding what's on the horizon, placing business within the context or the landscape within which it operates. We do that at the Exeter MBA by starting the programme with a module called Tackling Global Challenges. That module draws from the annual report produced by the World Economic Forum. It's the Global Risks Report. And this report offers an insight into the issues that are on the fore of the minds of business leaders. So a whole sample of business leaders share what's on their agenda, what are on their discussions in terms of the horizon and the context within which we all operate. And from reports like this, we can gain a better insight on some of those systemic, complex issues in which we have to be mindful. And through a greater awareness comes the opportunity to review the strategic direction of a business. The way that the World Economic Forum structures this report is by producing a table of global risks, this table down here. It's quite small. And the categories within that are the issues around economic risk, environmental risk, geopolitical risk, societal risk, and technological risk. And these are things which shape a whole raft of connections and issues related to business. So if we look here at this section, this is the top 10 global risks that are ranked by likelihood. They are things that are imminent and likely to happen. And if we look at this list, we can see at least 4 of the top 5 are coloured green, which means that they are environmental risks. Things related to extreme weather conditions, biodiversity loss, climate change impacts. And then the other section here are risks by the impact, top risks by impact. And of course, the global pandemic is there as a risk to society. And here we see also issues of geopolitics, and again, linked to the environment. So even in this uncertain, unpredictable business landscape, and you could argue that the last 12 months have been really unpredictable and caught many business leaders by surprise. We still have a responsibility as business leaders, as those deciding the strategy of that organization, to open our minds to what is happening globally. No longer can we focus in our locality on just the issues around us, because those raging fires in different parts of the world, the biodiversity loss which is impacting upon nature, these are things that actually are having an impact. They're having an impact upon the investment community. They're having an impact upon global governance and legislation. These are things that are going to create change within the boardroom, within the decisions that are being made. So part of what we do as we launch into a program of leadership is actually raise awareness and bring to the fore of our mind the complexity of the landscape within which decisions are being taken. We then encourage leaders to ask questions and to probe more deeply so that they can explore these risks and the implications to their business. By engaging with the evidence, by scrutinizing the data, so we have the better insight towards the implications and consequences. And from that, then the strategic decisions being made lead to necessary adjustments. They even highlight the opportunities. Perhaps it's time to re-examine the business model upon which this business is founded and the assumptions upon which it was originally designed. It might be time to review the purpose and the strategic aims of the business. But without that insight and without the understanding of the context within which you're operating, then the opportunities are limited and the risks are heightened. This, we think, is a fundamentally important part of setting the scene for any leadership education. That we can't look at strategy, operations, marketing, finance, and accounting without understanding this bigger global picture. And from this increased awareness and this deeper insight comes a challenge to leadership that we think is fundamentally important and a key part of how we develop our leaders. We want inspiring leaders for a better world. And that means that we need to look more carefully at the governance structures within business and ask questions such as, how do the decisions taken in the boardroom impact upon society and the natural environment? To claim ignorance is no longer acceptable. We all have a part, and business has a really important part to play. So how are those decisions made? What are the perspectives that are being sought in making those decisions? What's the diversity of the leadership team? Are all parts of society in which we work, live, trade, are they represented in the decisions that we make? Do we fully understand the consequences? When it comes to dealing with some of those risks, how are the problems being solved? Is it a solutions-focused approach? Are we bringing together our collective imaginations to find out the new possibilities, the alternate methodologies that are available to us? Again, it goes back to that engaging with evidence, seeing what's out there, asking the right questions, we think are fundamental. And where does the responsibility for doing the right thing lie? Where in the organization do we place accountability? And what is the right thing to do? Just because we've got away with it, or just because we've believed this is the way to go forwards, doesn't mean that that will sustain in this unpredictable landscape. Having that foresight and that awareness to be looking on the horizon is absolutely key. Understanding how issues of forced migration could impact upon our business. Things like the talent pool available to us, things like the supply chain and what might be happening globally. Things like the investment decisions, how they're being changed and influenced by more of a moral compass towards things in the environment, things that are happening socially. What are the governance structures taking place within our organizations, and how are those leaders held accountable? Are those structures working? Do we need to be doing things differently? Are there better models out there? So you can see at the heart of any sort of education and improving knowledge, we have to be asking questions that opens up alternate perspectives and new possibilities. And this is where I believe that critical thinking through inquiry and reflection, absolutely fundamental leadership skills in the 21st century. The world has enough people with all the answers, but I believe we should be sending out leaders able to ask the right questions, because as the context shifts, as the situation changes, the answers no longer work, and therefore we need to be able to step back, reflect upon why that might be the case, and engage in the questions that open up, as I said, new possibilities. So important leadership skills within that landscape, being able to listen more carefully and respectfully, especially when we do not agree with what we hear. That's the greatest challenge. So how do we hold ourselves to account as leaders? How do we move beyond just knowing? How do we hold ourselves to account in how we are in the world? To know and to be is fundamentally part of doing better as a business leader. This whole issue of attentive listening, focused on solution-seeking questions, such as what can I learn? What is useful about this? What is it that I don't understand? And what is it that I might be missing? At Exeter, we focus on the circular economy. We know that there are fundamental challenges out there in terms of environmental damage, social injustice. We're looking at the solutions. What are the new models? What are the new possibilities? How do we need to shift our thinking and engage in different questions in order to take waste out of the system? Maybe to reduce the waste that's impacting the environment, we need to go right back to the beginning and design products and services that actually don't produce that waste. Inquiring leaders, they're self-reflective, they're self-correcting, and they are committed to learning. That energy around that whole being as a leader brings the energy into the business to make it adaptive, responsive, and importantly, regenerative. In this changing environment, is able to rebuild itself, reimagine itself, and be fit for purpose. And I think the greatest challenge of all is to be comfortable with not knowing and not being right. Now that can be quite challenging when you come into a program thinking it's about getting the knowledge, getting the piece of paper, getting the qualification, but actually it's more than that. It's being uncomfortable with the fact that actually what you thought to be true might not be the case. Being able to challenge your assumptions in order to develop, to grow, and to stretch is really important part of both being a better leader, but also being a successful and impactful MBA. That's a very quick whistle-stop tour of why we think the global challenges and being able to tackle those global challenges is the responsibility of all business leaders. To understand the systemic nature of how a business operates and what it's connected to is a really important part of beginning to look at business fundamentals like strategy, marketing, operations, etc. So what does this mean for how we design the Exeter MBA? That we place responsible leadership at the heart of what we do and why we do it. So this is the Exeter MBA program. It's divided into 5 key themes: designing a better future for all. And within that, we have the module around tackling global challenges, where we work with a whole body of organizations to share with our students the things that are at the fore of their minds. So the World Economic Forum, Voland, who are a consulting group looking at the triple bottom line of people, planet, IBM come in and talk. The meteorological service talk to us about changing weather patterns. A whole range of guests. Marks and Spencer's come in and talk about their approach to supply chains and food and ethical resourcing. We have the Circular Economy Design Challenge, where we work with organisations to reimagine possible solutions to the challenges that they face. Understanding our world with accounting and finance, economics, data and analytics. And then throughout the programme, we have leading with purpose. This whole question of purpose is really fundamental. Why are you doing what you do? And why are you choosing to do it the way that you do? So leading self, leading organisations, and corporate governance, this whole issue of responsibility, risk and reputation. These sit throughout the programme and we touch upon them time and again as we look at the various subjects. Achieving enduring success takes us through marketing, strategy and operations, the business fundamentals. But those fundamentals are placed in the context of responsibility. So how do we do these things differently and how do we do them better if our goal, if our purpose is towards building better business? And then creating the new, so agile innovation in the digital era, thinking about those digital technologies, thinking about the responsibilities that the technology companies hold, thinking about issues of cybersecurity, but also the technologies that actually take us forward and create the innovations to solve some of these problems. And then entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship is a fundamental energy that runs through the Exeter MBA. So it's this energy of creating, of solving, and of self-direction towards how somebody wants to be in the world in business. And we have as many people wanting to set up social enterprises as we do their own commercial enterprises. It's been a fascinating energy that we've seen in the MBA. But that program is built, it's built on this foundation of values, purpose, and principles. Our values, very much underpinning the program, are around things like responsibility, inclusivity, diversity, criticality and reflection. All of these things, they show up time and time again in how we design the program and how we deliver the program. Purpose, we had to really think about what's the purpose of the Exeter MBA? Well, yes, it's definitely about building business for a better world. And we really seek to play a pivotal role in the preparation of managers from around the world for the responsibility of the leadership positions that they will go on to occupy. To understand that with that leadership comes the power by which to affect change. And with that power comes a need for ethics and responsibility. Program principles, well, it is definitely a leadership program. It takes a look at the concepts, models and theories in order to solve the most pressing challenges faced by business. And this one is really key, that we believe business is an important part of society and those leading must do so responsibly with a focus on people, profit and planet. So these principles have been thought about carefully, and again we ask each of our professors leading on these core business modules to think about how these principles inform their teaching and the content of their programs. It's a one-year full-time MBA. It's pretty intense, but it's very rewarding. The stretch that our students go through takes them from what they didn't imagine was possible in terms of their character to someone bold and confident and able to go out and affect the change that they believe passionately in. Throughout the program, we have a dedicated careers coach, and career transformations is part of that goal. So start the year with an induction and ask the students the question, why an MBA and why now? Put your mark in the ground. Be very clear about why you're here and what you want to achieve. And then we keep going back to that and making sure that the student is mindful of everything they've sought to achieve for themselves. So this is what a one-year full-time MBA looks like, and that's the journey that you go through. A really important part of the Exeter MBA is our partnership with business, and my colleague Emma will tell you more about this. But the program concludes with a consulting project. The consulting project is on behalf of a client, and we have a whole raft of clients who present to us a challenge or a problem that they would like a bright mind to work on their behalf. And that project is the opportunity to pull from across the program the different models and concepts in order to find a solution or a way forward for that client organization. It's one of the most rewarding parts of the program, and it's the thing that sets our students up for their future. Many go on to consulting roles in their own rights. Some go on to work for those organizations. But what's important is wherever they've come from within the world, they get to understand what's on the mind of both local British organizations, European companies, or global multinationals. There's a whole range of different projects and different consulting types. Okay, I will pause for breath. I hope you found that useful. I'm going to hand you to my colleague Emma Birch, who is the manager of our admissions, and she's going to give you a little bit more of the detail on how to apply to Exeter and what's involved.
Thank you, Jackie. That was really interesting, and welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. So I'm just going to share my screen, and I've got a short presentation on just applications, admissions, and a little bit more about sort of nuts and bolts of the program. If you bear with me a second, right, here we are. Great. So my name is Emma, and my main role is to manage the admissions on the MBA. In particular, I interview all candidates, all eligible candidates for our program. And so I'm talking to eligible candidates pretty much every day. And I also attend fairs, so I may have met some of you in the past. But thank you for being with us today. So, oh, of course, my buttons aren't working. They were working before. There we go. So firstly, I mean, I've put a bit about our rankings and how we're recognized, because I do know that a lot of applicants look at rankings first. I mean, we are one of the top 200 universities in the world. The university is a Russell Group university, which also means it attracts particularly good academics for research purposes, which sort of hopefully feeds into our MBA and the teaching on our program. We're based in the southwest of the UK. For those of you who haven't been to the UK, it's about 2.5 to 3 hours by train from London when we can travel. And the MBA business school, the MBA is in the business school, and that's on the Exeter campus, Streatham campus. We have 3 campuses, 2 in Exeter and 1 in Cornwall. And the business school is on the Streatham campus, which is our main campus in Exeter. The MBA itself is also ranked within the Economist Top 100 this year, and we're triple accredited, which sort of speaks to the quality of our education. We've been recognised by AMBA, AACSB, and Equus. So it's well ranked, which I think is good, because that reflects how we teach and how we hopefully will attract the best students as well. Our cohort. So one of the things that I do is I'm really looking for a diverse cohort, not just diverse culturally, but diverse in terms of industry and levels of experience. This year is slightly strange because we've been teaching online since the beginning of the year, but we've still managed to attract 32 students from 12 different countries. Also, most of our students tend to be more experienced. So the average experience this year is 9 years, with an average age of around 33. We have found that the more experience students have, the more they can use their experience to inform their learning. So the experience that they bring to the program is really important for them, but also for the other students that they're working with. We always have a very diverse cohort in terms of sort of nationality and age and experience. And we're also very diverse in terms of gender as well. We're very sort of equal. Usually we have more women than men. This year we're 50-50, which is fantastic. We're really thrilled with that. Jackie touched a little bit on the career coaching. This is obviously a really important part of an MBA. I mean, most people will come to study an MBA because they want to change their career or develop their career, move up to a more senior management role, or shift functions or industries. So right from the very start of our program, you work with a careers consultant who will help you. So I'm just admitting somebody from the waiting room, who will help you to really sort of use the MBA to make sure you're making the most of it for your future career. You also have the opportunity to engage with careers mentors. We have a career mentor scheme, which is really fantastic, and we encourage all of our MBAs to get involved in that. And obviously our alumni are also involved in our MBAs, and you have the opportunities to connect with alumni throughout the program. Part of an MBA is about networking. It's about building your network, meeting the right people to help you with your future career. And we provide access to a range of careers fairs and events throughout the year where possible. But I think it's the alumni connections and the corporate connections that's really where you build you meet the right people so that you can move forward and perhaps make connections for your future career. As important for people who want to change function as for entrepreneurs as well. You know, you maybe have the opportunity to engage with people who would be interested in financing various projects. So there's lots of opportunities to look at different ways that you can engage with corporate partners, with alumni, with careers professionals all the way through the program. Sorry, change slide. Also, I mean, we've mentioned some of our corporate partners. They're a really important part of our MBA. Not only do they deliver workshops and offer projects to our students, but they also actually advise what we teach on the program. We have a corporate advisory board who help us to make sure that the teaching on the program is relevant to business today. The sort of companies we work with really range in sort of huge diversity. So I've put a few of the more well-known sort of companies up here. So we work with people like Coca-Cola, IBM, SAP, Unilever, but also smaller entrepreneurs, smaller local companies, not-for-profit organizations. So they really are varied. And the reason for that is our students come in with such a varied career needs that we need to ensure that they have access to all sorts of different organizations and can learn from different types of organizations. And obviously the careers that our students choose to do, because they're so diverse in their where they've come from, are also really diverse. I mean, I've put up a small sort of selection here of various roles that our students will choose to do. A few will go on to consultancy roles. Some will go into more senior management roles, some with a particular focus on circular economy or sustainability. Some will go into start up their own businesses. So it is really varied, and we have a fantastic sort of load of alumni who will help your students, our students, to really find out which careers are best for them and point them in the right direction. But I think this sort of illustrates the wide variety and the diversity of career that our students choose to partake in. Gosh, I've rattled through that a bit. So the nuts and bolts. Firstly, from an admissions point of view, I've mentioned that work experience is really important. And I think really that's our main entry criteria. So we do require a good first degree. That's the equivalent of a 2-1 in UK degrees. But I would say that if somebody has a slightly weaker first degree but excellent work experience, i.e. sort of 8 to 10 years at least, and in management roles, and potentially with other kind of professional qualifications as well, then we would consider them. But the work experience is really important to us. The sort of experience that we're looking for, I mean, we say a minimum of 3 years, but realistically, we're probably looking at more like 5 years experience, postgraduate experience, with some good career progression. Ideally with managerial, within a managerial role, but they could have had managerial experience as in managing a project or managing a team or a budget. So it doesn't have to be a manager as in a title, but provided they've got some sort of supervisory experience in some way, that would be particularly of interest to us. The start date for the program is September every year, and we always start with an induction too, so to help students get to know each other, to help them to get back into the education sort of environment. Obviously, if you've been working for an average of 9 years, then you will have been out of education for quite a while. So that induction is quite important, just to settle people in, to get them used to the various academic norms, to get them used to reading and researching and critically thinking again, before they start on their MBA journey. We also do send out sort of pre-reading materials and things for our offer holders to ensure that they can engage before they even start their MBA. Start with reading materials, with reading kind of current news about business, making sure that they have a good understanding before they start, so they can really hit the ground running. The fees for all students are £30,000. Having said that, we do have a very good scholarship scheme. We will assess all students for scholarship, and we'll look at their academic merit, their work experience, and their fit with the program, how they've engaged with research on the program, how they've whether they sort of align with our ethos, and award scholarships accordingly. We also look at financial circumstances. So all of these things play a part. Students don't have to apply separately for scholarships. We'll assess this on application. And obviously also English language is a critical entry criteria. Because the whole program is taught in English, and it's important that students can engage with each other and the academics and companies that we work with, it's very important that they have a high level of English. We require a minimum of 7 for IELTS, with no less than 6 in any sector. We do have pre-sessional English courses at Exeter, so that's a possible route if students wish to improve their English. It's also quite useful for them to help with the sort of cultural shift and getting into the UK education system, to study the pre-sessional English before they start their MBA program. And all students are interviewed by me, generally, and the interview is a really important part of our program. We can't make an offer without an interview, and the interview is fairly informal, but not so informal that it's not important. So I would say, I would expect an interview for students to be have done their research on the program, to really understand what our program is all about, they don't have to have a clear idea of the direction that they want to go, but they need to have a clear idea of what they want to change, why they're doing an MBA, what's prompted them to take this decision to study an MBA. In terms of academic and application documentation, they need to upload their CVs, a statement of purpose, which will explain a little bit about why they want to study an MBA. Also 2 references, and I think that's pretty much it. We don't require GMAT, but if a student has GMAT, then we will accept that as part of our entry, and it can enhance their academic qualifications. So particularly if they've got a slightly weak degree, then a GMAT's a good indicator of their academic skills. So I think that's it from me. So if anybody has any questions, I don't know if any have come up in the chat. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you so much, Emma and Jackie. This is very much your time to ask us any questions you have about the MBA. So is Duolingo TOEFL? Yes, it is. So we still accept all of these different English language tests available. The MBA is not different to any of our other programs in the business school. So you can come to us with Duolingo. It just needs to be equivalent of an IELTS 7. Just what Emma has displayed is our English test. Emma, there's just been a question about MBA scholarships. Would you mind explaining about the scholarships, please?
Yes, no problem. So the way that our scholarships work is we assess all applications or all eligible applications at interview for scholarship. When I interview students, I will ask them about the funding they require. I would say the sort of level of scholarships that we offer tend to range from around 10% to 50%. And the average scholarship is around probably 25-30% of fees. So they're not enormous, but they should make a huge difference in terms of helping the students to really be able to access our program. We will also look at financial needs. So if a student can express or demonstrate that they are in particular financial need and there's somebody who really fits with our program, we will consider that as well. There is just about time to benefit from our prompt payment award, which is an additional £3,500. So that's really valuable award, which can be awarded on top of our MBA scholarships. But students can only receive one scholarship and the prompt payment award. They can't, if they are offered another scholarship through the university, they can only receive the largest of the scholarship. In all honesty, the largest scholarship is more likely to be the MBA scholarship anyway. So that tends to be the scholarship that they choose to go with. Some of our students also apply for external awards through organisations such as Chevening or the British Commission Commonwealth Award, I think. We will accept these, and we do have agreements with Chevening that we will fund, help top up the funds for the Chevening Award scholars. They tend to be excellent scholars anyway, so they're the sort of people that we're looking for in our programme. Does that answer your question, Anjana?
Perfect. The next question I think is a really interesting one that's come in, and it's about whether you need experience for an MBA and also what the difference is between a non-AMBA MBA, which is what we offer, versus a MBA without AMBA accreditation. I'm going to go to you first, please, Jackie.
Yes, thank you. This is a really important question. So the MBA is a leadership program. And if you want to do well and make a valuable contribution into the cohort, so an MBA is not a program where people sit in a lecture theatre and they receive lots of knowledge and they go away and take an exam. It is very, very different to that. It's very much active. It's experiential. So the classroom is based on discussion and inquiry. And to be able to play a part, you've got to have some management experience. It means that you've taken a year out, you've put life on pause to make sense of that messy, complicated job of management. You're looking for progression in your career. You want that next step. So yes, experience is really important on an AMBA accredited program, which the Exeter MBA is. And it's very important for your cohort members, those around you who want to learn from your wisdom and experience. Those discussions are a really important part of the MBA itself and how it works. And Becca, do you want me to just pick up on the consulting project question that I saw there?
Yes, please.
So, yeah. So the consulting project comes just after halfway. So it had a year-long program, starts in September, ends in September. The consulting project, you start being matched to your client around about February or March. The student gets matched to the client to February, March, and the project begins around about July in depth. So the project is done and delivered by the end of the program. So there's about 3 months of very focused consulting work and 5 or 6 months of building up to that project.
And the next question is about teaching and learning for the coming cycle. I think this is a really good question as well for you, Jackie.
Have decisions been made? So you know that messy, complicated, unpredictable world I've been talking about as a leader of a program. So we very much anticipate, and that's all we can do right now, a blended approach to learning. So we moved quite rapidly to be online in the last academic year, and those joining us in September were very clearly told we anticipate being online for the foreseeable future. We've been able to adapt and adjust according to UK government rules around what is possible under COVID-19. We anticipate with the vaccine and the move to more settled environment that we'll come back into the classroom late summer and be ready for the autumn. But all of those applying we make it very clear to our offer holders what they can expect, and we're fully anticipating a little bit of both. And to be honest, a little bit of both has been an amazing opportunity for the Exeter MBA and something we want to build on and take forwards in our education.
I think that's a really good point, actually, how actually some online learning has been incredibly beneficial to students. And not everything coming out of the pandemic has necessarily been negative. One of the biggest shocks for the university was actually online exams were less stressful for students than being in the exam halls. And the other factor is many businesses do have to do remote working. You do have to manage teams. So when we're talking to colleagues overseas for just the university, we can't physically travel all the time. And there's also that adjustment of how do you make your business more sustainable. So learning an environment that actually reflects can be incredibly beneficial to you as a student.
You're right. Just absolutely, Becca. 2 things there is we've been able to access guest speakers and people having input into our program that could never have found the time to travel to Devon, but it means that they can play an important role in the education. And the other thing is our global alumni. They can plug back in. So I shared in the chat a link to a series called The Leading Edge. But now those events have people from all over the world attending, and we use breakout rooms and we have dialogue. So you're absolutely right. There's huge opportunities there.
Emma, one question for you. If the student is awarded a scholarship, will the student receive an acknowledgement at the same time?
Yes, absolutely. So any students that are invited to interview will be considered for scholarship. And then the way that it works is that I will have a discussion with Jackie after my interview with the student, and we will decide on the level of scholarship will be appropriate, and also whether to make an offer. So if just because somebody's invited to interview doesn't necessarily mean they're going to have an offer, but I will always give them feedback on their interview, and at that stage, if they're awarded a scholarship, I'll advise on the level of scholarship and the terms and conditions of that scholarship. All of our scholarships are only applicable to the MBA in the year that they're offered, and the terms and conditions are fairly clear, and they're not too onerous either, but they do depend on the student meeting the requirements, the conditions of their offer, and attending the programme, registering the programme. They can't get award the funded until they've registered on the programme in September, but they will be advised as soon as possible once we've made a decision on their actual offer. Okay.
Thank you so much. I don't think we've got any more questions coming through. If there are any more questions, feel free to email your regional manager and we can always answer those questions. And thank you for attending today. We'll also make this recording available.
Yes, thank you. And I'll also just pop in the chat the link to the YouTube channel. We're very keen that you get to sample the teaching and get to sample the quality of the materials that are used at Exeter. Thank you for your time today, and thank you, Becca and Emma.
And Thank you, everybody. And I will also put in the chat my the MBA email address, so that if anybody has any specific questions about admissions, they're very welcome to connect with me directly, and I'm happy to help about that. If I put that in the chat, I'm not very good at typing and talking at the same time. So thank you very much for joining us.